Today holds special meaning for the history of Yuma, Arizona. It was 49 years ago today that an amazing feat came to an end. A small single-engine airplane ended an historic flight, one that put Yuma on the global map. It was a community-wide effort, with citizens volunteering tens of thousands of hours to make it all possible. Named appropriately the City of Yuma, this converted plane, piloted by two young aviators, flew into the pages of history by staying aloft over 1,100 hours. That's over 46 days of non-stop flying without ever landing. The two pilots, Bob Woodhouse and Woody Youngward, became instant heroes and legends. Their official time of sustained flight, 1,124 hours, 14 minutes, and 5 seconds. That's nearly 47 days of being airborne. An amazing feat of both human and mechanical endurance. Earlier this year, the two longtime friends reunited with other members of their world-famous team to look back on that historic time. Bob, Woody, and Horace Griffin, who was one of the drivers of the refueling car, got together for a special reunion and to see the plane once again that they became so acquainted with nearly 5 decades ago. So how did this crazy idea of flying a plane to break a world record come about? The man with the idea was a very well-known city leader, Ray Smucker.
Previous record holders, Barris and Riddell, were still in the air when we were on a Chamber of Commerce trip to Parker, and a group of us in the car. We're talking about the endurance flight and the fact that we knew them, and I was ridiculing, you know, what does that prove? That's like flagpole city, you know, just what do you prove doing that? And this is Ray Smucker, who was the radio station manager, was in the car, and he said, oh, don't be foolish, you could, there's $1 million worth of publicity in this, something like that, you know, because every time they mention the endurance flight, they have to have a date land saying Yuma, Arizona. And there's $1 million worth of publicity for that. He said, movie stars fake suicide to get on the front page. We could be on the front page every day. And so I said, well, you get the airplane, we'll fly it. About 3 days later, he came into our shop, he said, well, I got the airplane.
I was working for Griff at the time. I was the parts manager for him at the Buick GMC agency. And Griff had a lot of ties with, that he needed to be there. They had asked him to do the flying, and I guess he decided that, you know, it didn't fit very good with business to get tied up that long. So he or somebody asked me if I would fly in his place, and I said, yeah, I'd be glad to, but you know, I can't get along without my $125 a month income. He said, well, we'll pay you that. So okay, sounds good to me. Well, it was a challenge to me, and I was glad to be able to give it a try.
Now with the plan set into motion, work on the project got underway. It was early spring in Yuma, 1949. Although the idea started with 4 men in a car driving to Parker, soon the entire town of Yuma pitched in to help. The Yuma Junior Chamber of Commerce sponsored the flight, with numerous businesses donating time and goods to help the cause. After modifying the plane in countless hours of painstaking planning, Bob and Woody took off. The two ex-Navy and World War II pilots set the goal of 1,010 hours. But that flight was short-lived. In fact, the first 2 attempts at breaking the world record ended in failure.
The lining of the inside of the airplane was a kind of a felt material, and it got into the gasoline, and while we were opening the cans and everything, and clogged up the finger strainer in the carburetor, and brought us down. And after that, they took more care of giving us the gasoline. They strained the gasoline before they gave it to us, and they vacuumed out the middle. The airplane so it wouldn't happen again, and we never had that kind of a problem.
It would seem so discouraging. I mean, you're up in the air for 70-some-odd hours, you land, you go up again, it was like 155 hours.
I don't think I ever felt discouraged. It was just a frustrating delay, and we just tried it again.
Yeah, that wasn't very much fun. It was kind of disappointing because we thought we were off and going. So we had a longer wait that time, and everybody that you'd see on the street or around town would say, well, you guys are not going to start like now in August, are you? Well, yeah, I guess we are. So, you know, the general people thought, you know, we'd failed twice, and here we're going to start again in the summertime when it's 115 degrees in Yuma. But what we looked forward to was getting up at altitude. Once we get above 4,000 or 5,000 feet, well, it was comfortable, and as it worked out, it was all right.
Finally, after 2 failures on August 24th, 1949, Bob, Woody, and the hundreds of others who made the flight possible gathered at the closed military base. That was the whole reason for the City of Yuma Endurance Flight, to advertise the perfect flying weather our desert climate has to offer, with the hopes the publicity would reopen the airbase.
So at the time, that airbase was closed down completely, and so this is what was Smucker's idea, was to get the airbase open. And if Ray were here today, he would say, I don't think it had much to do with it, but it did. It brought national attention, and boy, the military came in right away, and that's when they opened it up.
While Bob and Woody flew the friendly skies of the desert Southwest, on the ground a network of hundreds of volunteers making it all possible, the silent heroes of this story.
We had a heck of a team, and I think what Bob mentioned in an interview yesterday, that the people on the ground did the whole thing. And we got to fly the airplane and get the credit, but those people on the ground passed up all the material and filtered the gas and got it there in time and bought our meals all the time, hot, and took care of us, period. And we got to sit there in our butt and wait. Anyhow, it was a very definitely community effort on the ground, with all the people filtering all the gas. Every bit of gas that sent it to us was run through a chamois skin before it was put in those cans and put to us. So we can imagine shamming all the gas, everything that went up to us, and getting it out there in time, and there was a lot of work on the ground.
We were fortunate enough to be the people that got picked to do the flying, and really it was a community-wide program for Yuma. And Woody and I were the ones that got the publicity, but there was everybody else in Yuma was involved in it too. And
with the full support of the community under them, Bob and Woody flew day after day, night after night. They flew in 4-hour shifts. While one was behind the controls, the other either slept, worked out, or did in-flight maintenance on the plane. Since they couldn't land, getting fuel and supplies to the 2 pilots was the job of Horace Griffin and his crew. Horace was one of 2 drivers of this 1948 convertible Buick. There were 2 4-man crews. Horace drove the morning shift. He and his men were there every day for their 4 a.m. rendezvous.
The first thing is I furnished the Buick. The Buick actually had belonged to George Murdoch, who was my service manager. And George took care of all the service work on the Buick. We, at that time, had no problem. There was nothing going on at the air base. There was no commercial flight in there. There was no military in there. So we had full run of the airport. And a lot of times in the morning runs, we would go clear across the runway from the southeast to the northwest, right across the runway, and slam on the brakes when we got to the fence and go back and do it again. The reason for this was we always had to go into the prevailing wind at that time. The morning refueling crew consisted basically of Chuck Mayberry, Keith Smith, Bernie Penske, and me. And I was the driver on all the morning runs throughout the flight. And Charlie Gilpin had a crew on the evening flight, including Bob Hodge and Paul Birch and several others that I don't remember, but because I never had any involvement in the evening run. Now again, there was no committee to say, you're going to be on the evening run, you're going to be on the morning run. That's just the way it happened. And so in the morning, we would go down early in the morning to Marsh Aviation, which is where near the prison, where the old Marsh Aviation field was, and that's where we got the gasoline. It was in the tanks down there for the airplane. And then also Tate and Hobart, the Shell oil distributors, furnished all the gasoline and the oil and so forth for the Buick.
Each time we refueled, it took about 12 runs to get all our gas and our supplies, our bath water. Every other day we took a bath, and they sent us up the hot water and a sponge bath. We used a racetrack pattern where we flew up to 200 feet and came around and made when we were beam our starting position, we started our turn, and we joined up in the car. We found it was, instead of joining up in the car, it was better to come down and establish our flight path, flight altitude, and let the car move under our wing, because we turned out that when the car moved under the wing, it gave you a different air path, curving air path over the top of the car that increased the lift on the right wing and where the car was, and so we would have to correct for that, and also that gave us a little more lift. So when we joined up with the car, we'd actually have a little forward pressure on the stick and little right aileron to hold the wing down, and we ran along on that bubble of air from the car. And matter of fact, one time that almost gave us trouble when the car ran out of gas, if you imagine, and faded out and backed up when we weren't ready for it, and all of a sudden we were heading for the ground, but which was only a few feet away. But fortunately we didn't land.
Oh, I can very, very well remember that, because I just got careless.
Plane would come in and
Ray Smucker not only concocted the idea for the endurance flight, he also helped on the ground. He remembers how Bob and Woody kept in touch with their wives.
And then on the last pass, either Woody's wife Betty, I believe, and Berta Woodhouse would stand up on this plane going 70 miles an hour, and her husband would lean out of the plane and kiss her good morning, and then they'd take off into wild blue yonder.
With every passing day, Bob and Woody's flight became more popular. Newspapers around the country covered their endeavor. Newsreels and radio were also part of the media frenzy. As the media kept the world informed of the flight, Bob and Woody stuck to their schedule. Just the two of them cramped inside their 1948 Aeronca. In such a small space, claustrophobia could have easily set in, but everyone pitched in to help break the monotony.
We're Griff's refueling guys. We were kind of hurting for gasoline that time, and we came in and started to pass, and Chuck and Smitty are laying down in the back of that refueling car reading Mad Magazine or something, and acted like we weren't even anywhere around. And I mean, we were within 3 feet of them, and they completely ignored us. So those kind of things really helped to pass the time. You were relating to the monotony of it. So actually, you spent half the time flying the airplane, and probably another 3 or 4 hours doing other duties, like just the time you have be picking up gas and pumping gas. We had to pump the gas twice from the cans to the auxiliary tanks, and then from the auxiliary tanks into the wing tanks. So there was, and that, speaking of exercise, that gave us quite a little exercise too. So.
We were in awfully good shape. Dr. Irwin gave us a very good, strict diet. Matter of fact, we weren't to drink any water for the whole time. But we cheated. We ate ice cubes. But we didn't drink any water. They gave us fruit juice or coffee. Everything we had was supposed to be for nourishment, and no water. And whatever we did, we were very healthy when we came down. I think we were probably in better shape when we came down when we went up.
What goes up must come down. And finally, on October 10th, 1949, at 3:25 in the afternoon, Bob Woodhouse and Woody Youngward landed the city of Yuma. They had spent more time in the air than any other human beings in the history of mankind. An astounding new world's record of nearly 47 days was now the joint possession of these two down-home boys, who were quick to share their honors with the residents of Yuma. They beat their goal of 1,010 hours, ironically on October 10th, or 1010, a day that still has special meaning.
Well, it was a high point in my life, for sure, to think that, you know, that many people were supportive of us, and we had broken the record. And so we got down, and he came. I was motioning him a little bit lower, and got down. And I'm looking straight down here at the ground going by 60 miles an hour, and I thought the tire was about 6 inches from the ground. I told Woody, okay, that's it. So he pulled the power off, and turned out we were about 3 feet high. So you've probably seen in the videos, there's had about 3 landings. So we always razzed Woody about that. Now, I couldn't have done any better. We probably landed from 5 feet high. But then we start taxiing up the runway, and here comes Griff and a bunch of people in the refueling car running along beside us, and there's a string of school buses and cars and stuff about a mile long lined up on the edge of the runway. So it was that was really the high right there.
I don't know. I can't. We're happy we had done it, and happy to be back on the ground, and that's about it.
I can remember Woody saying, "Griff, do you know what day today is?" And I said, I didn't catch it right at first. He says it's 10:10. So that was October the 10th, and every time I hear 10:10, whether it's 10:10 in the evening or 10:10 in the morning or the date of 10:10, it's a big day in my life.
And a big day for the thousands of residents of Yuma. While it brings back fond memories to reminisce on the past, exciting things lie ahead. It's been over a year now that a diligent search for the original City of Yuma endured plane came to an end in Minnesota. Now this world-famous plane is back home, back in the city in which it's named for, promising to make this coming year an exciting one. As a new generation works meticulously to bring the past alive once more, rebuilding this prestigious plane so it can once again take to the skies it made so famous 49 years ago, over a town that we call home, the City of Yuma.